What is going on, everybody? We're here, back with a brand new episode of Umineko When They Cry. What's up, on? We saw Kyrie, Rudolph, and Hideyoshi go to the mansion in order to get some food, but unfortunately, they got trapped by Ava, Beatrice, and while they fought valiantly, Kyrie and Rudolph against the sisters, and actually managed to kill two of them, they were still unable to fully get out of the mansion alive due to the involvement of the Benoit sisters, or whatever they were called. I can't remember off the top of my head. And Hideyoshi, in a very heartbreaking scene, trying to get through to this Ava, Beatrice, who trying to snap her out of it, out of any way to say, this isn't her. She isn't just a cool woman. She is more than that. She isn't just vindictive against the usual Mira family. She is more. She's a loving, mother, a loving wife. But unfortunately, Hideyoshi's words don't get through to Ava Beatrice. While in Purgatory, we see Beato once again berate Beato, saying how she needs to grow up and warn the sanctity of life, and how it isn't funny at all to see someone die over and over and over again. And Virgilita also put how Beato never truly became a witch, for a witch is supposed to bring happiness to mankind, not simply misery and death and all of that. So Beato has finally relinquished herself to go somewhere else so she can think over her life and learn how to be human, or learn the importance of life to a 1,000-year-old witch who has never even experienced life at all, and even in her actual human body, which was a very powerful scene. I really love how, Badwar has just grown over these, past chapters. Like, he really has grown over. It's only been 3 episodes, by the way. It's still crazy to me. This is only episode 3, but it feels like so much has happened. It's absolutely insane. Even in, like Higurashi, like, I didn't even feel like, oh my god, so much has happened. Like, even in Higurashi, I'm like, oh, okay, it's still episode 3. We haven't even gone to the good stuff at all. But it just, like, so much. Like, there's so much to this game. Like, it's so dense. So is Higurashi. But this game in particular, it feels just even denser somehow. Probably because of the way larger cast. Like, gigantic cast and a lot of that. And speaking of cast, we learned a bit more about Kyrie and how vindictive she was against Badwar's mother and how jealous she was, as we found out that she was the first one to actually go out with Rudolph, but unfortunately, Anomi, is that how you say her name? Anomi was, kind of chosen by Kenzo. No, it wasn't that, but like, kind of like, in Kyrie's mind, took away Rudolph from her, and how she also had a miscarriage as well, and she sort of sees anyway within Bador just that vindictive side of her jealousy, which once again goes to show you every single character in this game has more wares to them than, on the surface, which I very much appreciate. I really do like that. Like, that was one of the biggest highlights of Higurashi as well, was how deep the characters were, and how Ryukujo 7 is able to do that with as large as a cast as this is truly amicable. It's truly god tier writing, is what I want to say. There was a comment last episode that tried to explain why Ava Beatrice is so much more powerful than the original Beato we encountered. And the way that they put it is that Ava Beatrice isn't limited by anything. By, reality, by morals, by pretty much nothing. And that got me thinking of what's the biggest difference between Beato and Ava Beatrice? And I came up with a kind of cool analogy, in my opinion at least. The way I see it is that Beato is your traditional murder mystery villain. You know, just like traditional murder mystery. Well, Ava Beatrice is more of a slasher villain. In all actuality. Here's how I'll explain this. Beato is your typical murder mystery villain because she sets up murder mysteries. You know, like what's the difference between a slasher movie and a murder mystery movie? Simple. It's all presentation. In a murder mystery, the movie starts with a murder. A typical, like, simple murder, or maybe a little complex murder. But in a murder mystery piece, like media, there's always a trick to the murder. There's always a solution to it. And it's the, you know, job of the protagonist to find out what is the trick to the murder, or what exactly happened, and figure it out along the way. And obviously in murder mystery media, there can be more bodies along the way as the protagonist continues to find the culprit. And that's what Beato is. She is your traditional 19th century, like the Master, or no, not the Master. I can't remember, like, Sherlock Holmes' arch nemesis, because I haven't read a lot of Sherlock Holmes at all. But she kind of reminds me of that type of villain, like a Sherlock Holmes villain. Or, really, or in my case, Ace Attorney villain, you know? How each case has a conniving culprit who sets up this mysterious murder, and you gotta figure out, well, what's the trick? What's the motive? What's the trick here, and all that. That's what Beato is. Well, with Ava Beatrice, she's a slasher movie villain, in that she doesn't care about the presentation. She just kills because she can. She wants to. She wants to see all the different ways she can mangle and destroy, mutilate these people in gruesome, horrific ways. A lot like, you know, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, or Freddy Krueger, especially Freddy Krueger. In that she just mutilates these people just for her own amusement. And all we can do is watch in horror, because there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just mutilation, just pure murder, pure cruelty, pure violence, you know. That's what I feel like separates both Beato and Ava Beatrice, is that one's a typical murder mystery villain, while the other's a slasher movie villain. And I'm kind of proud of myself for coming up with that analogy, because I feel like it very much fits into this context, you know, of why Ava is so much more disturbing than Beatrice. It's because Beatrice is still bound by rules. She still has to be bound by the game against Battleware in order to prove that witches exist, aka a murder mystery game, where Battleware has to figure out the murderer. Well, Ava Beatrice, she doesn't give a shit about that. She's not connected to that in any way. All she wants to do is just kill people. That's all she wants to do. There's no rhyme or reason to her at all. And, yeah, it's so endlessly fascinating that of how this game, Ryokusho 7's writing really loves to play with genre. Like, he loves to play with genre tropes, as we saw in Higurashi with slice of life tropes. Now here with, obviously, murder mystery, or just general horror. Because there's a bit of cosmic horror, there's a bit of slasher horror, with just, you know, gruesomeness and the shock value of the victims, especially with Ava Beatrice. There's the, kind of, what other horror can I sing to? I don't know, the horror family. Yeah, generational horror. That's also a thing that can be applied to this game, is family horror, which can be applied to a lot of horror movies, well, specific ones, whatever, maybe Texas Chainsaw Massacre with their cannibal family. Is that a happy family? I don't know, I haven't watched the movies, I need to watch them. Anyway, let's get right into it. The 7 survivors returned to the guest house once again. By now, it was clear that those who went outside would not return alive. Rudolph's group had gone out with 2 guns and a master key, but those had been lost. It was already clear that those had been stolen by the culprit. Because the shutters were closed on the windows, it couldn't be opened even if the culprit had a master key. The front and back doors that led to the outside wall were sealed by chains. And also, this kind of change in kind of readership, quote unquote, is reflected in the murders in this, episode, because the first murder, or murders, was a circle-locked room, while the next 2 have just been in the open, like in the grand hall of the mansion or in the rose garden. There's really not much to find out about them at all, which is it's so fascinating. God, this damn game. The front and back doors that went to the outside wall sealed by chains, and they were further blocked with sofas and tables. Even if the culprit decided to break in through violent means, it wouldn't be easy for them.
台風が今となってはむしろ幸いかもしれない。もしも晴れていたなら、ゲストハウスに放火するという手もあり得たかもしれん。
Actually, now that I think about it, this episode 3 is kind of set up like a slasher movie, especially after the first Twilight, where all the characters go into a single guest house and, like, one by one as they get out of the guest house, they are murdered by the villain. Huh. I guess my slasher movie and murder mystery allegory was right on the mark.
そもそも台風でなかったなら午前中に船が来てたわ。それを不幸中の幸いと言えるかは微妙ね。
エヴァさん、体の具合はいかがですか？無理をされないようにしてください。
ありがとう。熱はまだ感じるけど、そんなことを言ってる場合じゃないわ。
Oh, there was another thing I could, I forgot to say about that slasher movie analogy. Is, the endless cruelty of Ava, Beatrice. Is that, like slasher movies, people love to watch them. So do I. I'll be first a minute. I love slasher movies. They're great, It's because every person has that kind of morbid curiosity within them, of like, yeah, I kind of want to watch, like, Jason kill, like, a bunch of teenagers at a summer camp, It's that kind of, like, bit of, I don't know what I call it. But, like, just morbid curiosity about, like, hey, I want to have a fun time. How about we see a bunch of, stereotypical teenagers get murdered by this giant, hulking monster in gruesome ways, be it, like, pitchfork or some other, drastic means. And how that part of ourselves is kind of embodied by Ava Beatrice, who is, personified as a child, a child who wants to see what happens, who is filled with curiosity and morbid delight, like completely filled with that. Just pure morbid curiosity of what would happen if I do this or that to these people, of like, what if I break this arm, or what if I, tear off this fingernail. That type of morbid curiosity we all have within ourselves, and in Ava's case, it's become personified within Ava Beatrice.
子供のためにも、今は寝込んでる場合じゃない。
After crying so much in front of Hideroshi's corpse, Ava had felt a strong self-awareness of her position as a mother, and her expression conveyed a strong will. In actual fact, her fever still hadn't gone down, and she was aware of that. If she didn't keep a strong hold on herself, she felt as though the fever would make her a hazy again. By this point, the first 4 formed the final line of defense, set up by Kwaos, Natsui, and Ava. The children and the guest, Nanjo, had been strongly warned not to go downstairs without taking care. If the culprit used a ladder or something, it probably wouldn't be impossible for them to attack from the second floor. but it wouldn't be easy for them to break through those sturdy shutters from such an insecure position. The second floor was relatively safe compared to the first. Beato and George had also wanted to remain on the first floor so that they could fight if the worst happened, but Ava had put a stop to that. In her mind, George was now the only member of her family. It seemed that she didn't even want to expose him to the danger of coming downstairs to the first floor. Cross and Natsuki could understand that feeling. Also, a great deal of time had passed since the siege began. In the second floor cousin's room, Beato, George, and Jessica sat dazed, and didn't even listen to the TV that had been left on. For a while, Nanjo had been with them and had tried to lend them words of encouragement, but when he realized that he might actually be having the opposite effect, he hid himself in his own room on the same second floor. Oh boy. George kept looking dazedly at the photographs that inserted in his notebook. It was from the time he'd taken a vacation to Okinawa with Shannon. Shannon's happy smile was contained in those photos. George could remember the temperature and the humidity, the warmth and strength of the wind. And even what he had been talking about with her at the time those photos had been taken, as clearly as though it had been yesterday. So to George, they weren't simply photos, but a door to bring back warm memories. In this room, even though the sound of the typhoon and the TV should have entered George's hearing, it was the scenery of Okinawa he had seen with her, and her laughing voice that reached his eyes and his ears. George had strived to be reborn after meeting Shannon. He had sworn to separate himself from the timid person he had once been. Easily caught up in the atmosphere, unable to refuse a crust and easily used by those around him. He had resolved himself to become a strong man who could make her life more joyous. Therefore, if he hadn't met Shannon, the man called Ushiro Miura George would probably have lived a very different life. And the George of that different life surely wouldn't have been as excellent a man as he is now. The person I am now exists for Shannon's sake. Now that Shannon is gone, why do I exist? It's completely meaningless, isn't it? He felt a deep, deep sadness, as though he himself had become empty. That feeling must have been tormenting him this whole time. However, until Beato mentioned it, he hadn't been aware of the feeling himself. He'd finally managed to remember that it should have been all right for him to cry much, much more. So he cried. Just like Beato had, he cried himself dry. By now his eyes were bright red and swollen, and he couldn't cry anymore. So George did his best to change his way of thinking. He was not meaningless now, and he should be grateful to Shannon for giving him such a character. The dead don't come back to life. He would have to get over being separated from his most beloved person. If he were to chase after Shannon and kill himself, she would surely be deeply dejected. It worked the other way around too. If he had died and Shannon chased after him and thrown away her own life, he wouldn't have been able to forgive himself. So he chose to surpass his sadness and anger, and decided to thank her instead. After meeting Shannon, she made his days rich and full, and taught him the meaning of working hard for other people's sakes. As a result, she had shaped him into the kind of person he had wanted to be. He wanted to thank her for that. He tried to quell his sadness in this way, but each time he did, he remembered Shannon's smile. He understood it logically. He knew that grieving any more than this would only make her grieve in heaven. But that didn't bring a stop to his sadness. Looked away from him
なんで
so soon.
人が死ぬってのはよ、こんなに悲しいんだろうな。
Beato muttered. It was as though he was speaking on behalf of all humans. This question probably hadn't been directed at anyone, but Jessica answered.
別れはどんな形でも、いつも、でもそれが、例えば老いであるとか、何かの時間であるとか、あらかじめ約束されていて、いつか訪れる別れであると分かっているものは、その悲しみを長い時間をかけてあらかじめ薄めておくことができる。それを許されないから、突然の不幸は悲しいんだろうよ。
なるほどな。そりゃ病気にでもかかって何年も昏睡状態になってりゃ、少しずつ心の整理もついてくだろうけど、ある日突然じゃその暇もねえもんな。
That's tough for you. Sometimes it just happens so suddenly. You can't even prepare yourself for it.
本来なら数年をかけて薄めるべき悲しみが一度に押し寄せる。そりゃ辛いわけさ。時には人の生涯に傷を残すほど深い悲しみを与えることもあるかもしれない。
生涯に傷を残すほどか。
じいさまのオカルト趣味もさ、そうささやかれてたんだよな。例のベアトリーチェって愛人を大昔に亡くして、それが悲しくて悲しくて立ち直れなくて、それで死者を蘇らせるためのオカルトの研究に残りの人生を全て捧げるようになったのではないかって、そうささやかれてた。
だとしたらじいさまは最後の土壇場でその奇跡を成し遂げたな。犯人は蘇ったベアトリーチェで、じいさまは殺される瞬間に再会できたってことになるぜ。
Well, it's made everyone else stuck in this kind of time loop.
自分で蘇らせて、それに殺されるとは皮肉な話さ。
それでもおじいさまは会えたんだろうね。人生の半分を賭してもう一度会いたいと願った女性に、わずかなひとときとはいえ再会できたんだろうね。
丸焼きにされちまったけどな。人生の半分をかけた研究にしてはちょいと割の合わない成果だろうぜ。
そんなことはないよ。たとえほんのひとときであったとしても、 愛した女性に再会できたおじい様は幸せだったはずさ。仮に生命の摂理に逆らった罪を神に咎められて、その身を焼かれ地獄に落とされたとしても、その見返りの再会がほんのわずかな時間だったとしてもね。
上司兄さん、
神の怒りに触れてこの身を焼かれようとも構わない。わずかな時間でもいいからシャノンを再び蘇らせてくれるなら、僕は残りの人生すべてをおじい様と同じ研究に捧げるよ。5分でいいからシャノンともう一度言葉を交わしたい。1分でもいいから、それと引き換えに全ての人生を捧げても僕は構わない。
I guess that's what love does to a person. I mean, it reminds me of Dante's Inferno, or I should call it the Divine Comedy of Dante trying to, if I remember, I mean, it's been a while since I've heard about it or watched a video about it because I haven't read it. Trying to meet with his wife, if I remember correctly. Quite a lot of myths are about lost lovers trying to reunite with their significant other, be it with deals with the devil, be it trying to go with them and, suicide, a la Romeo and Juliet. There's a lot of stories about that, and as a guy who's never really experienced love, I can't imagine sacrificing my entire life for it, because well, I mean, love does that to a person, huh? I mean, it just depends on if they just go so suddenly, because that's happened to probably thousands of couples over the centuries, and how people sacrifice their lives in order to find some way, find some, I don't know, some possible way to reunite with them, be it in death or be in life. It's love is a very human thing, Love is truly a thing, because where else in the animal kingdom can you see it? Creatures willing to sacrifice their entire, years of their lives trying to find some way. It's surely human,
Aniki.
When Beato and Jessica realized that their pointless discussion was causing George pain, they could do nothing more than shut their mouths. George directed his thoughts to Kinzo's wife. He sacrificed half his life to research that no one understood. Then on the last day of his life, he revived the person he loved most, and probably succeeded in this reunion in his final moments. George didn't know how much time they had together. He didn't know if they'd been given an hour or just 5 minutes. However, that moment must have been enough to reward him for all those months of research. Even though he spent dozens of years to achieve it, that small amount of time was probably more than worth it to him. Until today, I never believed in the occult or magic or anything. Somewhere in my heart, I even made fun of grandfather's research, thinking of it as nothing more than a pastime. However, I won't make fun of it anymore. No, to the contrary, I'll believe strongly that it's real. If the power of belief can create miracles, I'll probably throw away all of my studies up until today, spending the rest of my life from today onward studying magic. Give me the power of magic, and give me a miracle that has let me see Shannon again.
ごめんよみんな。僕もどうかしてる。魔法で死者が蘇るくらいだったら世界中の人々が魔法を学ぶだろうね。でも現実にはそんなことはない。誰も学ばない。死者が魔法では蘇らないって知っているから。ごめんよ、妙なことを言い出して。僕のせいでおかしな空気になっちゃったね。みんなだって辛いだろうに。気を使わせてごめん。
Even if I did it to divert myself from my sadness, maybe I did say something strange. If I keep talking about the stuff that's so weird, I'm sure it won't do anything good for their sadness. But that doesn't mean I can bear this silence.
僕は下に行ってもう一杯コーヒーをもらってくる。うちの母さん、コーヒーの入れ方にはこだわりがあるんだよ。みんなもおかわりはいるかい？
Beto Raccoon and Jessica Chan lightly shook their heads. Without pressing them any further, I took my mug and left the room. Just gonna get some coffee. But we've seen, you know, it's a very dangerous slope to trying to bring back the dead, as we see in Kinzo's case of, you know, sacrificing his family, his entire family, just for a chance to get to Beatrice. And we don't even know the exact, what's the true motive, you know, what's the true face of Kinzo's quote-unquote love. From his perspective, it is love, but from what we've seen, I would chalk it out to more lust. The shutters were all closed in the hallway, so the corridor was very dim. I tried visiting Dr. Nanjo's room and asking if he wanted more coffee, but he said he didn't need any either. It seems my mother's orthodox method of making coffee is universally appreciated. One time I made some for Shannon, but she told me that while it was delicious, it was a little strong.
Shannon.
That's no good. Even though I left the room to change my mood, that image of Shannon's face still in my head hasn't faded in the slightest. I kept seeing those fun days with her more and more vividly, and it's saddening that I never even got a chance to see her dead face. According to our parents, she was apparently killed with something like a gun or a spear. I'm sure they were just trying to console me, but they had said her dead face had been very beautiful and peaceful. I wonder if she had the engagement ring I gave her last night on her finger. If she accepted my engagement, she should have had it on the ring finger of her left hand. Last night we were both on the edge of losing it all and not calm at all. Shannon accepted my engagement pretty courageously, but she might have regretted that as a last reaction when she cooled her head. She might have taken the ring off. I wonder if she has the ring on now. I want to be sure of it, at least that much. I want to know how she felt at the very end. But even if I do confirm that, it doesn't mean that she'll come back. I wonder what will happen to her body. That day of the autopsy will probably be immediately cremated. Then, I'll never be able to see her face, even her dead face, for all eternity.
僕はシャノンを失ったショックで少しおかしくなってるのかな。
I don't want her body to be burned. If she's burned and turned to ash, never again will it be possible for her to revive. They say cremation is frowned upon in Western tradition, because on the day of resurrection there would be no body to revive. Because of that, it seems like great criminals in Western history were often cremated after execution as a punishment, and their ashes were sometimes scattered in rivers and such. In other words, to Western people, death is nothing more than a sweep until the resurrection. It is essential that the corpse is left after dead.
つまりそれは西洋人は死者が蘇る奇跡の存在を知っていたからなんだ。
Well,
でも日本にはその奇跡がなかったから焼いてしまうんだ。
now I understand why grandfather idolized the Western occult. That was his only reason from the very beginning. Just to revive the person dear to him, grandfather spent the rest of his remaining life researching the Western occult. The situation surrounding us now is abnormal. Grandfather did revive his beloved Beatrice, and that Beatrice has carried out a terrible serial murder. And with linked closed rooms that force us to conclude that magic was used. The Golden Witch Beatrice, the incarnation of the miracle of the Western occult, and also the culprit who killed Shannon. She's an entity I should hate, and yet for some reason, I want to cling to her. I wonder if Shannon could be revived with the magic of miracles which grandfather bet his life on. According to the legend of the usual Mira family, grandfather met with her long ago and was given a vast quantity of gold. Then, if I also met with her, instead of gold, would she give me Shannon's wife? As a collateral, I don't care what sort of devil's contract she imposed. I wouldn't mind sacrificing all of my remaining life. George probably couldn't believe or realize that his voiceless wish was heard by the witch herself, who stood right behind him. Beatrice had been listening to that entire discussion between the children just now in the cousin's room. Beato had told her that she didn't know the value of a human's life. And wanting to understand that in her own way, she had stealthily visited, listening in on their discussion.
それが願いだというのか。それを叶えれば、わらわは魔女だと認められるのか。
Beato looked at the palms of both of her hands. She had handed over most of her once surging magical power when the new witch exceeded the name of the Endless Witch. Of course, her current power still made her worthy of being called a witch, but it could not begin to compare to her previous strength.
無限の魔法などなくとも、わらわは千年に名を轟かす大魔女であるぞ。死者を蘇らすなど造作もないことよ。
Inside her head, she thought about several magical steps she could take to revive the dead. Even magic that should have been easy in the past would be difficult with her current power. She thought of something, then clicked her tongue, then did so again over and over. In the end, she finally thought of a single spell. But that was a spell that she couldn't use by herself. It was a spell that witches with weak power used, one that relied on the aid of others. In the past, Beato had looked down upon that type of magic. Therefore, she frantically tried to search for any conceivable alternative. But in the end, she couldn't think of one and slumped over in self-delusion. Then, careful not to surprise him, she softly called out. Softly, to George's heart.
Why? 後宮ジョージ、わらわの声が聞こえるか。
こえるとも。あなたは誰だい？本当に魔女のベアトリーチェ？それとも僕の悲しみが生んだ幻想なのか？もしも前者だったなら僕の願いを聞いてほしい。そして後者なら僕をそっとしておいてほしい。
Their conversation in the mental world was a lot like having one in a dream. When you dream, haven't you ever had the experience of casually accepting something that would have been pursued in the real world? Yeah. The conversation in this world was like that. So even though a witch appeared and started talking to George, he was not surprised.
わらわの黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェである。本来わらわとそなたはこうして会話を交わすことなどできない。しかしそなたがわらわのことを強く意識し会話を望むからこうして互いのチャンネルを合わせることができる。
Conscious, huh?
シャノンを殺したのがあなたなのか？あなたを名乗る何者かの仕業なのか？ただあなたが本当の魔女として存在しているならばどんな対価にも応じる。僕の命を望むなら今すぐに捧げてもいい。どうかシャノンを生き返らせてほしい。それが無理ならせめてわずかの間話をさせてくれるだけでもいい。お願いだ。
対価はいらない。その願い叶え。
本当にシャノンを？
だが反言の魔法を扱うには今のわらわには魔力が足りぬ。だからそなたの手を借りねばならぬ。
僕にできることならどんなことでも。それが僕の心臓を今すぐこの場で取り出すことであったとしても僕は躊躇しない。
そんなものいらぬというね。わらわは魔法を唱えさすれば冥府の扉に隙間ができよう。だが今のわらわにはその隙間よりシャノンの魂を連れ出せるほどの力はない。しかしシャノンのことを強く思うそなたならその思いを魔力に変えて彼女の魂を必ずや連れ戻せるだろう。どうだ、わらわを手伝うか？
手伝うとも。シャノンの命が蘇るなら僕は何を失うことも恐れない。
George's fist shook in silence. I have a bad feeling about this because, let's be honest, in every story of a beloved trying to find their lost mates going through hell or some other place, there's always, it's never simple as they find their beloved. There's always a catch, there's always a trick, there's always something. So I am hesitant about this. I ain't blowing out the confetti yet. Then he slowly came to his senses. He had been absolutely mindlessly standing near the window in the hall the whole time, his mug still in his hand. Wait, god damn it! This is a murder mystery game. The magic isn't real. Fuck. God damn it. His mug still in his hand, and the witch from his dream was still there.
そんな夢じゃない。
静かにせよ。今のわらわはとても脆い。この 他の人間まで現れたら姿を保ちきれぬ。そなたの願いは叶える。今は沈黙せよ。よい。
George covered his mouth with both hands, nodding enthusiastically several times. In that instant, he almost dropped the mug he was holding. George frantically juggled it around and caught it. He was afraid that if it fell to the floor and made a loud sound, the witch's form might disappear like a bubble popping. He softly set the mug on the floor and stared at the witch in front of him again. Her form didn't disappear. It was in a dream.
さあ、シャノンが眠る客室へ行くぞ。そなたの思いの力にて彼女の魂を連れ戻すのだ。
行くってどうやって？下には母さんたちがいる。表へ出るのを許してくれるわけがない。それにあなたはさっき他の人間が現れたら姿を保てないと言わなかったかい？
そういえばそうだったな。下にはクラウスたちがおったか。それでは確かに下へ降りられぬな。ならば1階へ降りずに屋敷へ行けばいいではないか。
Alright, George, jump out the window.
簡単な話よ。
Beato laughed as though she had thought of a pleasant plank. And with her golden pipe, she lightly tapped the window with its shutter closed. When she did, 3 gold butterflies appeared from the pipe and opened the lock on the window as though melting it. Then, the window opened without a sound. The shutter beyond it was exactly the same. The craft unset itself, also without making a sound, and quietly opened. The window opened, exposing the wind and rain outside the mansion. Perhaps because of the direction or something related to the construction of the building, the wind did not blow inside. Because of that, for a while, George felt as though this entrance that opened to the outside was a dream or an illusion, and he couldn't accept it as real.
さあ行くぞ。ついてまいる。
Beato gently floated upwards. It was a natural action, like that of a diver enjoying an underwater stroll. It made it easy to believe that if you acted like he did, you too might be able to float in the sky just as though you were swimming through the water. No, George did believe that. So without thinking, just as she had done, he also gently, as though swimming in the water, lifted his feet. Whoa.
やるではないか。ファラーが説明するよりも早く空を舞うことを覚えたか。
This is what, this reminds me a lot of like Peter Pan. George was shocked to find himself floating in midair like he was swimming. Of course, Beato was also shocked that George, who should not have been able to use magic, figured out how to do that just by instinct.
空が飛べるなんて泳げるなんて。
理屈を考えてはならぬ。それが自然なことであると受け入れる。ニュートンとかアインシュタインとか人間たちの競技を思い出してはならぬぞ。特に高き空を飛んでいる時に墜落する未熟な魔女も時に
あるがままを受け入れる。あるがままを受け入れる。
Said things were repeated. George repeated those words over and over. He must not deny magic, no matter what. Denying that would be like throwing away what might be his first and last chance to revive Shannon. However, compared to Beato, who was elegantly drifting like smoke, George's movements clearly resembled someone underwater. Therefore, if he didn't act like he was kicking his feet in the water every once in a while, he'd be caught up in the force of gravity bit by bit.
わらわが初めて空を舞った時よりは上出来であると褒めておる。行くぞ。ついてまいれ。
When Beato beckoned for George, she gently flew into the stormy sky. It was just like a scene from a fairy tale. The scene unfolding before George's eyes felt entirely like an extension of his dream.
空を飛べるのはすごいけど、すごい風と雨だ。
なんだ、雨と風に苛まれるのか。それを防ぐ魔法を教えてもよいが、今のそなたには早いし、今はそれを習う時間を割くのも惜しかろう。
ええ、僕が必要としている魔法はそれじゃない。
George wore a strong-willed gaze, refusing to let the wind and rain get to him. Speaking of Peter Pan, Beato's whole vibe is completely, utterly transformed into more of a, fairy tale witch. A lot more whimsical, a lot more childlike, in a good way, not in the cruelty aspect, but in the pure just whimsicalness of it, of magic. It truly is crazy, of how Beatrice was at first, when we were first introduced to her, such a hateable villain, and now by this point it's, especially this scene, it's much more childlike, fairy tale-like.
もう少し頑張れよ。今落ちればバラの茂みだぞ。
Like, another thing to say about Ryukushiyo 7's characters is that they will always change. They will always change depending on the episode, at what point. They will always change, and they are not one singular thing, and that is awesome and makes them more human, which is just absolute fantastic character writing. The undulating rose garden was spread beneath the witch and George's gazes. The illusion-like scene no longer surprised George. Only the gradual approaching mansion was reflected in his eyes.
Shannon, 待ってて。必ず君を蘇らせてみせる。
So I wonder what the hell actually is happening. Oh god. At that time, the cool new witch could be staring at the guest house from a different location.
あと残すは第7、第8の番だけね。あと2人で先代のババアの義理はおしまいだわ。クラウスと夏日を殺す。夫婦仲良くね。にひ、標的はどうかに？ゲストハウス1階ロビーにて標的2名と後ろ宮エヴァを捕捉。反魔法力測定。410へデータリンク。410データ受領。反魔法力は極めて小。エヴァさえ席を外せばまな板の上のマグロにアワビです。いかがしますか、大ベアトリーチェ卿。ご命令をいただければすぐにも狙撃いたします。どうかご命令を。ほんとにあんたたちは便利な家具ね。死体を恥じるしか能のない中古家具どもとは大違いだわねえ。シエスタ姉妹、またあなたたちの手際を見せてちょうだい。攻撃準備よ。死体はまた運び出してね。
Once again, the thing that makes Ava Beatrice more hateable than Beatrice is because she's She has no rules to her. There's nothing stopping her from doing anything, you know?
たっぷり遊んであげるんだから文句はなしよロノベ
はいかしこまりました
At that moment, the witch noticed something. It was as though some presence had disappeared. Was it her imagination?
今何か気配を感じなかった？誰か感じた人いる？申し訳ありません。私は何も気づきませんでした。お許しを。私たちゲストハウスを観測中でしたから周辺監視はオフにしてます。にひ。ルシファーちゃんは何か気配感じた
For just an instant, Lucifer glanced at Wonov, asking whether she should answer honestly or not. Wonov gave a small nod in response.
いいえ申し訳ございませんベアトリーチェ様私たちは何も中古家具ゆえ愚鈍なことをお許しください
そう大悪魔のあなたがそう言うならきっと私の気のせいなんでしょうね
The witch persistently stared in the direction the presence had disappeared to. That was where the rose garden lay. Beyond that, you could see the mansion's dark silhouette created by lightning. It took quite some time before she pushed her unsatisfied feelings aside and once again faced the guest house. That must have been George's presence. Well then, real magic. The guest house lobby was wrapped in silence. The strings of tension binding Klaus, Natsui, and Ava had already loosened, and they were completely worn out, with their minds beginning to waver. Every once in a while, they would stand up and walk about pointlessly, as though fighting their drowsiness.
大丈夫ですか、エヴァさん。やはり無理をせず休んでいてください。
大丈夫だって言ってるわ。もう大人は私たち3人しかいないのよ。休んでる暇なんかないわ。石にかじりついてでもここを死守するわよ。
She spoke bravely, but she couldn't hide her rough breathing. It seemed that the fever, which had been calmed with medicine for a short time, had returned. It was very obvious that Ava's health was not good.
無理はするなせめて目を閉じていたまえもし起こさねばならぬ時は必ず起こしてやるから
だから平気だって言ってるわ。放っておいて。
It seemed she was already unwilling to budge. Cross and Natsuri realized that even if they talked to her anymore when she was like this, it wouldn't reach her ears. So without saying anything more, they decided to let her be. To Ava right now, even having an argument like that would be burdensome. It would probably be better for her body if she just sat there with her mouth closed. In truth, Ava was just a step away from being beaten down by drowsiness. Perhaps she shot back at them with a temper because she was trying to rouse herself and throw off her sleepiness. The clock would be pointing to 6 in the afternoon very soon. She had several snacks to distract herself from her drowsiness so she didn't feel hungry. But now her lack of sleep made it feel like it was 6 in the morning, not the afternoon. Even supposing that the boat came at precisely 9 in the morning tomorrow, they still had more than 12 full hours to go. It was an overwhelmingly long stretch of time. Long. Painful. hot. Even the sound of the clock torments my body now. In times like this, when that person puts his hand on my forehead, the fever fades at once. But that person no longer exists. As Ava's mind grew foggy, she was once again gripped by a deep sadness. She had already cried herself dry. Even so, the sadness of losing her beloved husband had not been exhausted.
私は間違っていたんだわ。
どうして？
The new witch and Ava were fundamentally the same being. If Ava talked to her, she would always respond.
私は後宮家の当主の座さえ得られれば、それで満足のはずだった。それがあの黄金の山を見た途端に欲が増えたの。あの黄金の山を独り占めしたい気持ちに駆られた。
それは恥じることでも何でもないわ。だって後宮家の当主として当然の権利じゃない。他の誰にも黄金のひとかけらだって譲るものかってのよ。
私がその誘惑にとらわれたからあなたが生まれてしまったんだわ。あなたは私の少女時代の心であると同時に自分勝手でしかない私のよこしまな心でもあった。
Yep.
そのあなたがあの黄金の山によって芽生えた私の愚かな欲望のせいで私の胸という卵の殻を破りこの世に生まれ出てしまった。あなたを産んだのは私の責任。
なら私が殺したローザとマリアも、そしてルドルフとキリエと秀吉もあなたの責任ってことになるわ。
Ooh, you bitch.
どうしてうちの人まで殺したのよ。どうして
秀吉を殺す気はなかったわ。だってうるさくてしつこかったんだもの。その意味では私たちの、いえ、あなたの責任ね。あんなのを旦那に選んだあなたの責任だわ。
あなたみたいな子供にあの人の良さはわからないわよ。あなた
何よ、私たちは魔法で夢を叶えたのよ。碑文の謎を解いたわ。そして黄金を見つけ当主の指輪を手にしたわ。すべての夢を叶えきったわ。それがなんで不満なの？
それだけが全ての夢なんかじゃないわ。あの人と素敵な人生を歩んでジョージに素晴らしい人生を託す妻として母として私にはまだ叶えなければならない夢がたくさんあるのよ。それなのに
それはあなたが大人になってから勝手に増やした夢だわ。私たちの夢じゃない。
だからあなたは子供なのよ。自分さえ良ければいいの？そうよ。全て私が悪いのよ。あの時ローザの言うことにどうして私は反抗したの？どうして兄弟みんなに黄金を見つけたと発表できなかったの？全て私が醜いから。黄金を独り占めしたくて芽生えさせたよこしまな心があなたを孵化させてしまった。
ひどい嫌われようだわ。私たちは2人で後宮エヴァなのに。
いいえ、もう違うわ。そしてそれはあなたが言ったのよ。私は後宮エヴァ、そしてあなたは黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェよ。だからもう消えて。魔女なんておとぎ話の中にしか存在できない妄想よ、幻想よ。あなたなんか消えてしまえ。 二度と私の前に現れないで。
ああ、そう。わかったわ。あなたの前から消えてあげるわ。そして私はもう後ろにはエヴァじゃない。これからは黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェよ。もう好き勝手に遊んでやるんだから。
Oh, fuck.
あんたなんて知らないわ。ヘスでも噛んで勝手に死んじゃえば。
After having a very childlike tantrum, the witch who had once been another Ava vanished. Only Ava was left behind in the darkness. She questioned herself.
私なの。私が彼らを殺したの。あの人を殺してしまったのも私が殺してしまったの。
She could no longer answer that question herself. God. I really can't tell if it's a red herring or not. That it's just Ava. Like, Ava's the killer. Because it seems so obvious, but it's so goddamn obvious. It seems like a red herring. Or maybe I'm just looking into it too deeply, or I don't know. It seems so obvious. Of course it's Ava that's the murderer, but was she really consumed by her greed that she formed this kind of, I don't know, separate personality or whatever? I don't know. It seemed that half asleep, she had gotten some saliva caught in her windpipe just as she was dozing off. Ava suddenly started coughing.
大丈夫かエヴァ。夏日、水を頼む。
はい。大丈夫だってば。ちょっとむせちゃっただけなんだから。
Ava pushed away Natsumi's hand as she tried to rub her back and then suddenly rose to her feet.
顔を洗ってくるわ。ごめんなさいね、寝ちゃってたわ。戻ってきたらまたコーヒーを入れるわね。特に濃い、明日の朝まで眠気が来なくなるようなやつを。
うん、頼む。ゴーダの入れるコーヒーよりお前が入れるコーヒーの方が私の好みに合うからな。
お世辞でも嬉しいわ。すぐ戻るわ。
Good old-fashioned coffee, the #1 source of all insomniacs. Even though I don't drink any coffee. I think I drank one once, but I didn't like the bitterness of it. Also, it reminds me of Alan Blake. Ava exited the lobby, heading for the bathroom. Klaus and Natsuri watched over her flail back.
あなたもあれだけ犬猿の中だったエヴァさんに気を使うこともあるのですね。
Oh fuck, Natsuri and Klaus are by themselves. Shit.
本来兄とはこういうものではないのかね。
ねえ、それで正しいと思います。
エヴァに限らん。ルドルフにもローザにも。私がした兄らしいことといえば、それを王兵に語り、彼らをいじめただけだ。
Yeah.
父のようになりたくて、私なりに必死だった。
Oh, absolutely.
だが、いつもそれは及ばず、そのはけ口を彼らに向けてしまった。しかし、 それは言い訳にならん。エヴァにもまだ傷が癒えぬほどに深い心の傷を負わせてしまっただろう。
Gave birth to a kind of separate personality, or which, however you want to see it.
悔いているが、今さらそれを詫びたところでその傷が癒えるわけもない。
あなたがその気持ちを今だけでなく持ち続けることで、その気持ちはきっと他の兄弟たちにも伝わりますよ。
今となっては
Yeah.
他の兄弟もエヴァを残すのみだが。
So much, for that.
もしあなたとあなたのご兄弟が生まれた家が後宮家でさえなかったなら、もっともっと普通な楽しい兄弟の関係であったでしょうに。
それを言ってはならん。エヴァは生涯私を憎み続けるだろう。そしてその資格がある。私はそれを甘んじて受け止めるつもりだ。
あなた、
エヴァ、すまん。もちろん許さなくていい。
It's nice to see Qualis have some regret for his past actions of saying anything he wanted to towards Ava in order to become Kinzo, to succeed him. And god damn it, this just reminded me I need to watch Succession. And also Empire as well, which is pretty much the black version of Succession from what I've little I've seen of it. I actually had a meme in my head of Umineko Succession for anime people, Empire is Succession for people who love WAP. Type of stuff. But yeah, stories of families trying to kill each other is very universal, in a bunch of stories. Maybe it's because it's very prominent for our history. Oh shit.
悪いと思ったなら今すぐへそでも噛んで死んじゃえば。やっちゃえシエスタ島。
Shit.
45射撃許可受領。射撃曲線再確認。飛行誤差修正。410データリンク。410データ受領。射撃許可確認。にひひひひ射撃。
Well, shit. Together, the sisters released the magical bowstring they had readied. A beautiful tail trailed behind the gold arrow and drew a lovely curve as it flew. It was just like a gold snake. It skillfully avoided a grove of trees and flew towards the front door of the guest house. Then flew into the keyhole of the door and snuck into the guest house without any problems at all. The gold snake raced down the hall smoothly, yet as fast as an arrow. Right before it was the door to the lobby. When it flew into the keyhole, not Klaus and Natsui were already. For an instant, Klaus thought he saw a gold-covered sparkle in the keyhole in the door. However, at the same time as he strained his eyes to see what it was, that sparkle bent like a whip and attacked, wrapping it itself around Klaus's neck. Just looking at it, the gold snake seemed very supple. However, it was as though a wire had tied around Klaus's neck. And while that snake choked Klaus, it extended even more and also tied it around Natsumi's neck. Without even a chance to scream, their eyes bulged as they went into convulsions and then collapsed.
45命中および死亡確認。牽引曲線形成補正点修正。 410データリンク。410データ受領。死体牽引開始。2匹も釣れた2匹。
The old snake began to drag Klaus and Natsui's bodies back. They swept through the door to the corridor, dragging the bodies, gradually increasing in speed. And rapidly pulled them outside the guest house. So the lobby was silent, as though nothing had happened. As though Klaus and Natsuri had not been there since the beginning. Only the sound of the wind and the rain remained, as if they were playing dumb and pretending to be the only ones there.
ごめんなさい。もう大丈夫よ。今コーヒーを入れるわね。
Ava returned from the bathroom, but no one was in the lobby. Even though they had supposedly been on that sofa until the moment she had choked and gone to the bathroom, they were gone as if they'd been an illusion from the very beginning.
不用心ね。二人揃ってどこに行っちゃったの？
Ava put her hand on the sofa as though acting out a scene from a detective novel. She felt a warmth that meant that they'd been sitting there until a short while ago. Maybe they went to do the round or something. For the time being, Ava sat down and waited for the return. Well, about that. Beato and George could be seen in the parlor of the mansion. George was kneeling near Shannon's body as though praying. His face was serious and there was even sweat on his forehead. However, Beato was the same. Now that she had handed her name over, most of her previous power had been lost. Of course, she still had more than enough power to be called a witch, but compared to the past, it was a very faint thing.
いいぞ。声をかける。手で触れるな。心の声で呼べ。心の手で求め。そなたの強き思いだけ。シャノンの失われた魂。わらわの魔法を届かせ。
George kept praying earnestly and silently. He kept frantically yelling inside his heart, trying to call back the soul of the person he loved. He strongly envisioned this soul leaving his body and searching for her as she wandered through the land of the dead. Beato turned that strong force into magical power that supplemented her own magic. This was magic that, in the past, she could have performed easily without anyone's help. But now, if she didn't rely on someone's assistance, she wouldn't be able to finish the chant, much less succeed. Beato was wearing an even more strained expression than George. They had swept her mind, but originally the magic to revive a wife was the ultimate hidden art. The abnormal thing was her previous magical power, which could be used over and over with a snap of her fingers. So the heavy burden on her body and mind was, fundamentally speaking, extremely natural. The strong energy pouring from George was large enough to act as magical power. At first, Beato thought it must be the blood of Kinzo, the sorcerer. However, that probably wasn't it. She had a feeling that Battleware had already told her what it was. It had been born from the power of George's sadness at the death of the person he loved, and from the way he had tried his hardest throughout his life. From the warm time spent together with Shannon to the size of the dream they swore to protect in the future. Is it really possible for humans to take life so seriously, even though they only have a single one? Yes! It was only natural. To her, life didn't mean anything more than the difference between the top and bottom of an authorial piece. If the black represented death, then she thought all you had to do was flip it over again and make it white. However, it was just like that broken vase. To humans in a world without magic, where they cannot return things to their original form, it is very, very natural for them to bet their life and soul.
生死すら自在にする無限の魔女。死の山さえ越えられぬ有限の人間に劣ることもあるというか。
This time the witch acknowledged him. He was able to hold a magical power that could never reside in witches who didn't understand the value of a life. Why does this thing called the Endless Magic exist? Even though I called myself the Endless Witch, did I forget what the Endless Magic means for 1,000 years? She looked at George's expression again. His surging earnestness was like a lightning bolt. Why now, even if George's body had been burned or smashed by a waterfall, he would probably continue to pray for his beloved without minding it, without noticing it. For the first time, she showed respect for that power. So in that instant, all magical resistance was lost, and the enormous power of George's feelings turned into magical energy in its complete form. The vase was very beautiful, rich with history and value. Even as young as I was, it still forced me to take a deep breath when I witnessed its beauty. But that just made me want to touch it. But the vase easily fell and smashed into pieces, like a bubble that had popped. It felt as though the time it possessed the form had been just an illusion. Lives are just that fragile, just that easily lost. I realized that my foolish curiosity had led to something that couldn't be undone. No matter how much I regretted it, no matter how much I apologized, the smashed vase wouldn't return back to its original form. A lost life will not return to normal, no matter what happens. I was frightened that, even though my actions had been thoughtless and careless, they had stolen away a life that could never be revived again. Then I pitied that lost life and cried. I was frightened of myself, the one responsible for its loss, and cried even more. I'm sure Grandfather will also cry at the loss of his precious vase. I'm sure that all the people who love Grandfather and see him like that will cry. With the loss of a single life, the whole world can be filled with so much sadness. I cried even more at how terrible that was. Beatrice appeared and spoke.
ならばお嬢様、この壺を魔法でよみがえらせましょう。それで皆が幸せになれるなら、壺も魔法も精霊たちも喜んでそのために力を貸し、元の姿を取り戻すでしょう。さあさあお嬢様、目を閉じて私と一緒にお歌を歌いましょう。さあさあ、目を閉じてごらんなさい。そして思い出してごらんなさい。
It's so nice to see Beato actually understand what life is. Life is unique, and once it's gone, it's gone. And every life is so unique and precious, and it's always sad to see it go, no matter what. It's sadder when it's way before someone's time. It's... so... precious.
あなたがどんな姿をしていたのか、それはきっととてもとても美しい姿。どうか私にあの姿をもう一度見せておくれ。
Whoa. Those words of power knocked forcefully on the door to the land of the dead. The magic of her old self had performed that same forceful knock. However, doing it that way was horribly violent and earned the displeasure of the peacefully sweeping dead. But this time was different. It was very forceful and yet gentle and loving. The dead near the door opened their eyes. Whoa. And called out to the others that there was a voice calling for someone to come back. The sadness of that voice calling from the outside touched the hearts of the dead. And trying to respond as quickly as possible, they searched for Shannon's lost soul. And then, they found it. They found the casket in which Shannon was peacefully sleeping. It truly was Shannon's soul sleeping in the land of the dead. Inside the casket that was covered with rose flowers frozen with frost, she was sleeping in peace. The dead suddenly lifted that casket up. Well, at a glance, it looked like a funeral march. It had the complete opposite meaning. It was solemn but filled with joy. The long-forgotten dead were made to remember that they were loved after their deaths, and that they were all given a warm sense of peace. Then, as though guided by a warm light from the heavens, Shannon's body floated up out of the casket. The dead watched her go. They squinted at that warm light, offering their respect to this unknown member of the living who had not lost his love for a person even after their death. Shannon's body was enveloped in the light from the heavens and began to disappear. In the jet-black darkness of the land of the dead, the faint flickering of gold butterflies could be seen. It reminded them of the gentle stars in the night sky which they had long forgotten. George remembered being told that he must not say anything, and he hurriedly covered his mouth. However, it felt like his heart was trying to jump into his throat, because he had seen Shannon's eyelids shake slightly. Then those eyelids slowly opened. Shannon's eyes were there, but they were still wrapped in the fog of the land of the dead. However, the human's world's warmth, no, her lover's warmth, which had called her back, her soul slowly dissolved that fog, and her eyes gradually regained their sparkle. Then her eyes moved, and recognized George.
George-san.
As her lips shook weakly, Shannon definitely said that. The words were very faint. So much so that they wouldn't have reached his ears. However, George clearly heard them. He heard the person he cared for, his fiancée, the one he loved most and who should have been dead. call his name once again.
シャノン、僕がわかるかい？
ジョージさん、これは夢なの？
いや、これは夢じゃないよ。だからほら、つねっても冷めないよ。
As George said that, he softly pinched Shannon's cheek. It was how George had always responded in the past when Shannon had been surprised by something and asked if she was dreaming. When Shannon felt the warm touch of George's finger on her cheek, and when George realized that the warmth of the living had already returned to his beloved person's cheek, they both cried. What words should a pair of lovers separated by death celebrate with when they are reunited? The words of the human world are not enough. In short, they had no need of the words of this world. George simply hugged Shannon, who was sitting up without talking. Shannon's strength was still feeble, and putting her arms around George's back took all she had. So George hugged her tightly to make up for that, to stop each other from going once more to a place where their hands couldn't reach. They hugged each other so tightly and yet so gently. As Shannon's fingers curled around George's back, on her ring finger, the engagement ring George had given her definitely showed. That strong glint continually wasn't just the sparkle of diamond. There definitely was a magical power that only the two lovers could possibly feel. It was because that strong light existed that they had been able to find her casket in the land of the dead. Beato understood. That ring now, that feeling of the pair embodied in that ring were a miracle made real. In that moment, George definitely used magic. Beato had done nothing more than help him along. And magic had a power that could only reside in those who knew of the importance of life, who knew what it meant to try with all one's might. It was the power of a miracle, one that the endless witch couldn't possibly know of, a miracle that only the power of the finite could give rise to. By now she had no choice but to accept it. She had to accept that true magic, true magical power, exists in the place furthest away from she who called herself a great witch.
Beatrice 様。
彼女が君を生き返らせてくれたんだ。ありがとう、ベアトリーチェ。
わらわは何もできなかった。シャノンをよみがえらせたのはそなたの魔力、そなたの魔法、奇跡を成し遂げる後宮の血、確かに見届けさせてもらったぞ。
ジョージさんが私を。
わらわなど足元にも及ばぬほどの凄まじき魔力であったぞ。わらわなどまだまだ見習いの域を出ぬ。今こそ身の程を知ろうぞ。
God, that was such a... Oh, that was such a beautiful scene. Oh, that's the only word I could describe it. It's beautiful. Holy fuck, it actually worked. God. Beato staggered backwards. Her physical strength was clearly exhausted. She had humbly said that George's power alone had revived Shannon, but Beato had also used all of your magical and physical strength. And she reflected upon how difficult it was to revive a single life. Something she'd been able to play around with however she wanted to in the past. The couple kept on embracing each other tightly. By doing that, those feelings that couldn't be communicated with a billion words were shared.
ありがとう、ベアトリーチェ。君は僕たちの恩人だ。
ありがとうございます、ベアトリーチェ様。再びジョージ様に会わせてくださったこのご恩を決して忘れません。
よせよせ。愛し合う二人に感謝されては外道の極みと恐れられたわらわにはくすぐったすぎるというものよ。わらわのことは気にするな。存分に再会を祝い合え。
Beato, who was leaning with her back against the wall, slid down the wall and sat. How many centuries had it been since she last grew this tired of using magic? It probably hadn't been this tired since the time I first succeeded in magic. Didn't teacher praise me at that time? No, but didn't I kill that same teacher who praised me? Don't be so naive, Beatrice. Isn't that what killing means?
ようやく魔法の使い方を思い出したようですね。
頭ん中酸欠でカラッカラで思い出すもヘチマもねえぜ。それよりあんた殺したじゃねえかよ。現れるんじゃねえよ。
あなたが未だに私を生かしていますよ。だからこうして現れられます。もっともあなたの頭を撫でに来たわけでもありませんが。
無様なわらわをわざわざ嘲笑いに来たかよ。それに隠居までした魔女が今さら頭なんか撫でられちゃ他の魔女の笑い物だぜ。
そうですね。一人前どころか現役を退いたと豪語するあなたなのに、今頃になって魔法の使い方を覚えたなど恥ずかしくて誰にも言えませんね。
だなあ、内緒にしてくれよ、お師匠様。
Beato gazed at the couple, hugging each other with a sense of present despondency.
愛か。勝てね
45データ治療。
I fucking knew it!
射撃準備完了。弾手選定
God damn it, I knew it! Fucking knew it.
410射撃。
The gold snake arrow fired by the chest tires weaved its way through the bushes in the rose garden, weaved its way through the hedges, and climbed the stone steps towards the mansion's entrance, aiming for the keyhole. It weaved through the corridors and flew into the keyhole on the door to the parlor. It happened in an instant. One could hardly blame Beato, who was completely worn out, for not noticing beforehand. Right before Beato's eyes, the gold snake flew in through the keyhole, surrounded the two lovers and pierced the two hearts in the blink of an eye. Furthermore, the gold snake faithfully pierced a hole through Shannon's chest once more. The two hearts were pierced by that gold snake. No, by that gold sewing thread of the new brutal witch's furniture. And it had happened in an instant, mocking the amount of effort it had taken to revive Shannon. Before Beato's shocked eyes, the two fell over and landed on the floor.
ジョージ、シャノン。
あ
God
りがとう、ベアトリーチェ。
damn it.
わずかの間でも合わせてくれてありがとう。
George spent his last breath thanking Beato and died alongside the one he loved. The gold snake, which still smoothed the two in place, spun like a large cyclone, revolving around the inside of the parlor. It was searching for a further point in that room. Then the tip of the snake baked Beato's gaze. In that instant, Beato was prepared to die. At that moment, Virgilia stood in front of her, the fingers of both her hands drawing a seal. Instantly, gold-covered gold leaf buried the inside of the parlor. It was like a blizzard of gold.
ベアト、今のうちに逃げて。シエスタの黄金宮からは誰も逃れられない。
410標的疾患200魔法機マシ45了解索敵変更対人画像追尾方式標的再捕捉410データリンク410データ受領すっとろいに仙台様来て来て来て着弾
Shit. Prey targeted by the Cheshire Sisters' golden bow did not escape. It could not be blocked. No magical barrier could even dream of blocking it without being multi-layered. The gap opened during that instant of confusion caused by Virgilia's deception magic was Beato's only chance to escape. And it was the only chance to make the sisters confuse Virgilia for Beato. Oh, as Virgilia spread her arms wide, blocking the way to her beloved disciple, the gold snake pierced straight through her heart. After sneaking in through the keyhole, the snake shot through George, Shannon, and then Virgilia in an instant, completely failing to notice Beato as she used that instant to escape. As soon as Virgilia saw that Beato had gotten away, she died. The strength left her body, like old dust drifting with the wind, her form was erased. Beato completely erased all traces of her magical power, became gold butterflies and passed through the wall, escaping to the wind and rain outside. Yeah, call her a bitch, Beato! Beato felt regret from the bottom of her heart. Why? Because she had been attacked by the new witch? Probably not. Of course, she hated losing her teacher. Then even more importantly, Beato was enraged at the barbarism that had bullishly stolen away the reunion between two lovers. Beato had poured out almost all of her magical power to reunite them. Even though the result had been a miracle, the time it took to steal that away had been so ridiculously short. Beato trembled at the barbarous cruelty that brought about such an abrupt end. Besides, this was the true form of the acts she herself had committed up until that point. So just as strongly as Beato hated the new witch, she also looked at her previous self with disgust. But now she had to escape. If she was targeted next, she would probably lose her life. To think that a chess player descended, thinking they were like a god, only to be attacked by the pieces.
45着弾確認。標的資産。間違いなく先代様を撃破しました。また私たちの撃墜気象が増えちまうにひ。愛し合う2人なんだっけ。引き裂いて1度、合わせて2度、もう一度引き裂いて3度楽しめるだっけ。そのついでにあのクソうるさいババアまでさよならできて最高にご機嫌よ。ロノウェイ、文句ないわよね。
ございますベアトリーチェ様。
あいつは魔女の碑文の儀式を妨害したのよ。第一の番の生贄を勝手に蘇らせて私の儀式を妨害したわ。文句言われる筋合いなんかなんにもないわよ。しかしずるいなあ。あいつは死体を残さないよね。あのババア思いっきり何度も無限にいじめ殺して遊んでやろうと思ったのに。
Fuck.
ジョージが来てないわよ。いつ降りたのよ。
いつって。
Oh shit.
あれは何時くらいだったっけ。
Time to see the aftermath.
確か4時か5時くらいだったかな。最低でも1時間以上前だよ。
俺たち眠くなってその後は多分居眠りしてたし。でも多分ジェシカの言う通りだと思うぜ。1時間か2時間くらい前だった。
私もそのくらいの頃だと記憶しています。コーヒーのおかわりはいるかと聞かれましたからな。
Something hard to believe had happened. Apparently when Aunt Ava had left for a second to wash her hands, Uncle Klaus and Aunt Natsui had disappeared. There's no way they went hiding somewhere. Of course, the doors and windows had all been rigorously checked and all were locked from the inside. Not one of them was broken. And that wasn't just true for the first floor, the second floor was the same. Again, all the doors and windows had locks bolted in a way that made it impossible to lock them from the outside. In other words, there was no way that Uncle Klaus and Aunt Natsui had gone outside. And yet they couldn't be found. Furthermore, they weren't the only ones who had disappeared, so had George Zanicki of all people. George Zanicki had left saying he was going to get more coffee, and had gone downstairs more than an hour earlier. We assumed that he was having a conversation with Aunt Ava and the rest. But Aunt Ava, who had been in the lobby the whole time, said that no one could come down. Since all the doors and windows were locked from the inside, it was unthinkable that they had gone outside. However, the three humans had evaporated from this barricaded guest house, which had become a perfect closed room. In a situation like this, we couldn't imagine that this was because they were playing hide and seek and trying to scare us with a prank. It was probably reasonable to assume that they'd been caught up in this crime. When Aunt Ava had learned that her only son was missing, she had gone half insane, running from room to room and yelling his name. And Jessica, who had suddenly lost both of her parents, had chased after her. Cries of George, George, and Mom and Dad had continued to echo through the guest house for some time. I think George said something about wanting to see Shannon's dead face. It would be reasonable to assume that he snuck out of the guest house and went to the mansion. But I didn't have a clue about Uncle Klaus and Aunt Natsui. Did they see him leave and then go to the mansion to search for him? Without even telling Aunt Ava? At this rate, it's only a matter of time before we start planning to leave the guest house to go search for them. When that time comes, I'll agree. We thought saying hold up in the guest house would be safe, which was why our big happy group of troll people locked themselves up here this morning. Yet now there's only 4 of us left. That means staying here is no guarantee of safety. However, there's one thing we can't afford to forget. All the doors and windows were locked from the inside. This is a closed room. How did they manage to vanish from this place? It's all locked from the inside. We searched around thoroughly. However, we couldn't find any traces of someone hiding. The 3 of them had almost certainly been taken outside the guest house.
どうやってでしょう。まさか隠し扉とかがあるとか。
隠し扉？
扉も窓も外から閉めることは構造上不可能です。釣り糸の類を使ってもこの構造では無理でしょうな。となれば扉や窓以外から出たと考えるのが妥当でしょう。
確かにそういう論法にもなるだろうよ。隠し扉が存在しないなんて断言は誰にもできない。しかしそういう発想に飛躍する前に俺はもっとシンプルな可能性も疑ってる。
Probably Klaus and Natsuki had the master key.
と申しますと
For some time, Beato had been opening windows, opening shutters, and checking outside. Repeating this for each window.
この窓は静かだな。なるほど。この窓は他と違って建物の構造上風が吹き込まないわけか。
そのようですな。こんなにも外は風雨なのに雨も風も入ってこないとは不思議な気持ちです。
南條先生、今窓を開けた時音を感じたかい？
いえ、気にはなりませんでしたが、よく油が効いていると思います。
Nice and quiet.
つまり誰も見ていない廊下の窓からひょろっと抜け出すことは可能なわけだ。しかもこの窓なら風も吹き込まないから風圧でカーテンや扉が音を立てることもない。静かなもんさ。
Beato leaned forward and looked at the ground below. He was searching for some sign that George had jumped down, but at a glance he didn't see any mark like that on the glass in the middle of the pouring rain.
こういう窓が1階にもあるのかもしれない。誰にも気づかれずに表へ出ることは可能だぜ。
しかし扉はおろか窓は全て施錠されて鎧戸まで閉まっていましたぞ。出ることは可能でも閉めることは不可能だ。
閉められるぜ。こうやってカチャンとな。
Beato had closed the window and locked it, as though this was perfectly obvious.
まさかバトラさんが。
最後に中の人間が鍵を閉めればこんな密室は朝飯前だ。
しかしそれでは
Nanjo turned pale and shook his head several times, because the thing Beato had said had forced him to face the fact that was frightening even to imagine.
俺の想像したトリックならな。しかしこんなトリックを使えば怪しまれる人物は極めて限定される。
He didn't want to say it in front of Nanjo, but after eliminating Jessica, who had been with him the whole time, only Nanjo and Ava could have done it.
私はそんなことをしませんぞ。誓ってもいい。
となるとエヴァおばさんと南條先生のアリバイ合戦ってことになる。
Yeah, that's a big problem for both of them.
俺たちは2人とも怪しんでそれぞれを別々に監禁すればいいだけの話。逆に言えばこのトリックはもっと生存者が多ければ有効かもしれないが これだけ人数が減った状況下では大して有効ではないんだ。
No, on the contrary, there'd be a chance of having your own neck strangled by using it. It would have been more advantageous to make it look like the culprit was outside. To intentionally leave a door unlocked or break a window.
もしこの失踪劇が今日の昼にでも起これば、俺は自信満々にこの説を発表しただろうよ。だがこの段階に至っては全然自信が持てないぜ。何なんだこいつは。一体何を意味してやがるんだ、この密室はよ。
やはりその。
なんだい南條先生、思いつきでもいいから言ってくれよ。
Nanjo looked like he was trying to swallow his words, even though he thought of something, so I urged him on. After Dr. Nanjo refused several times, saying that it was just a foolish idea, he finally said it out loud.
イエス、やはりこれは本当に魔女の仕業ではないのかと。
バカバカしい。魔女なんているわけがねえぜ。
魔女は私たちに訴えたいのです。人間にはできないことをやってのけるからこそ、自分を魔女だと認めさせたいに違いないのです。私はこのゲストハウス全体の密室からの失踪は、そういう魔女からのメッセージだと感じています。考えてはならないのです。意味なんてきっとないのです。私は恐ろしい。
As Dr. Nanjo shook with fear, it looked like he was trying to erase the fearsome thoughts that he kept imagining one after the other. When we went down the stairs, Aunt Ava and Jessica were enraged. We were each persistent in their desire to leave this place in search for their respective families. It was a desire that naturally hits those who can no longer see their family. Aunt Ava told Dr. Nanjo and me to stay here, but I shook my head and started walking.
もう引きこもりはたくさんだぜ。俺も外の空気を吸いたくなってきた。
ああ、行くならさっさと行こうぜ。もうこんなところに閉じこもってるのは真っ平さ。早く父さんや母さんやジョージ兄さんを探しに行こう。
The blood had all listened to Jessica's head. I hope it doesn't set off her asthma.
残りたい人は勝手に残ってればいいわ。とにかく私たちは表を探してくるわ。
南條先生はどうする？一人で留守番してるかい？
いえ、私もご一緒させてください。
Fuck no, I would be dead. Rather than holding up alone in the guest house whose security was by no means guaranteed, it would be better to enter a danger zone as a group of 4 people. And Ava had a gun. Moving separately from her was almost like asking to be made into the next victim. So Nanjo or Ava? Ava seems so goddamn obvious. So obvious. It has to be a red herring. So maybe it's Nanjo. I mean, what have we really gotten about Nanjo's character? No, like really. Like what? Nanjo has always been the odd man out without in this entire cast. He's always been the odd man out, you know? Like out of every single person, he's the one guy that seems like he's just caught up in this, you know? And ever since we were introduced to him, I've always had this kind of like inkling, this kind of idea of like, what if he's the culprit? But at the same time, that could also be a red herring of like, of course, the one guy that's not connected to any of this is, of course, the evil mastermind behind all the murders. So it's like, which poison do I choose? You know, like which one do I believe more? the thing that the game's pointing to more effectively in this episode, or the kind of what would you call it? Kind of out of character, or like out of place character, you know? It's a very hard choice to like decide between the two of them. In this way, the four of us decided to move the guest house. Even though it should have been safe to barricade ourselves here, we lost the people after doing so. It was almost as though this was a holy cell from which the sacrifices could be killed one after another. We removed the chain, unlocked the front door, and opened it. It was already pitch black, while there were some lights outside that dimly lit the pathway. They didn't have enough power to pierce the darkness that some suspicious person might be hiding in.
行くわよ。遅れても知らないんだからね。
Still holding her gun on, Ava dashed out without an umbrella. Jessica followed after her. After glancing at each other, Dr. Nanjo and I chased after them. What in the world is happening in this mansion on this island? I've just been shut up in the guest house with the rest of the cousins since yesterday. So I don't know anything about what's going on outside. Just what is happening that I don't know about? Outside this room, in the mansion on this island. Everything is happening, everything is proceeding, and everything is ending without my knowing it. Somewhere in my heart, I've already started giving up. Most likely, not one of us will see tomorrow morning. If the seagulls cry, nobody will be left alive. He said the thing. Oh shit! Oh, we are getting to the end of episode 3. Like this. I feel like this is the witch's courtroom. Okay, all right. Okay. And on that note, I feel like we're going to end it here, because I very much feel like next episode we're going to get to the end of episode 3. Honestly, because we're down to our last, 4 characters. Everything's coming to a head, and wow, what an episode! God, what an episode! So, who could it be? Is it Ava or is it Nanjo? Can't be Jessica. Can't be Bad War. So who did we pick? The obvious red herring or the other red herring? I don't know. I don't know. It could be either or. Like my gut wants to say like Ava. But like my heart wants to choose Nanjo. Or my mind wants to choose Nanjo because it's out of left field and kind of like, it's like by this point I distrusted this game's information. Like a lot of scenes I've been so just like maybe just murder mysteries in general, or like the entire genre of like, don't suspect what the book is pointing to, because that might not be, it's most likely not the right answer. So, my gut's telling me Ava, but my mind's telling me Nanjo. So, I don't know. God, once again, this game is fucking great, and the fucking George getting Shannon back, the Land of the Dead scene was just fucking beautiful, man. It was so fucking beautiful. Just absolutely just fantastic. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this type of content. If you did, hit the subscribe button. If you liked it, hit the like button. Want to tell me something? Put that in the comments as well. Want you to add a Discord server in or my Twitter, check the description below. And yeah, it's been Voidlego. I'll see you guys next time. See ya!